Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome for you listening all the way from wherever you happen to be. Today is Friday in Melbourne, and this episode is probably going live. You'll probably listen to this in early February, but it's an absolute pleasure to have on the podcast today, coming in from the east coast of the United States, from a place called Rhode Island, Lisa Shorr. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi there. Thanks for having me so much, Darren. I'm excited to be here.
It's it's good to have you. We've been speaking for about 20 minutes before we press record, and there's absolutely a lot of gold you've already shared, which I hope I remember to ask the questions that will bring out those pockets of gold that you were sharing. You are you run two businesses. You've been involved and run an IT based organization and have done for many years, but also more recently. And when I say more recently, if I get this right, the last 10 to 12 years?
Correct. Yep, 10 years.
You run Shorr Success, which is all about personal and corporate branding, and you're a corporate and personal brand coach. And I must say, your setup in the video is very brandy, very specific.
Very intentional.
Even down to the leather jacket, which is awesome. And also the author of, now, when was the book released? Is it recent?
The book was just released. It's called Your Brand Unleashed, and it just came out in October of 2024.
Nice. Now, you're also saying that took a couple of years to write, and there was a number of events or a number of things that sort of were challenging through the process leading up to and in the writing of the book, which I'm sure we'll get to. Love to know a little bit about, for the listeners' benefit, your background and what led you specifically to do what you do today. And we'll talk specifically around the branding, but I think the fact you're also in IT and running an IT-based organization as well, there's probably lots of leadership lessons in that also. So
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about the Lisa Shorr story.
So I think there are two. Thank you again, and then everybody listening. Branding and is in my blood, and I'm so excited to share some wisdom and inspiration with all of you. I want to start by sharing a story of what really set my mind on leadership and management. Back in the 90s, I was working at a company while I was getting my college degree at night. And I was in sales there and selling adhesives. And I made a mistake on a label for an order that was supposed to go out. And well, actually, I made the mistake twice.
Yeah.
So back in that day, we were a very manual company. You know, we didn't have a lot of the history and all the documentation and all the cloud-based services that we have today. So I was called into my manager's office, and not only was my manager in the office, so imagine me sitting across the desk, a big mahogany desk across the way from my manager, but sitting next to me, to my surprise, was another person who headed up accounting for the company. And I don't know why she needed to be there, but my immediate feeling, so imagine feeling ganged up on.
Yeah.
Imagine feeling defensive. What did I do? I made a mistake on a label. And he sat me down and said, "So how should I reprimand you for this, Lisa? I want you to come back to me tomorrow and let me know what I should do to reprimand you." Now, yep, that I see your expression, Darren. I just sat there and I was just like, I made a mistake on a label. You want me to, and so I didn't have a response at that moment.
Yeah.
I went home and I cried. I put my head in my pillow and I cried hysterically. But then I had an epiphany moment and I realized, first of all, I don't deserve to be spoken to that way. I do understand the ramifications of having to reprint and refill the order. I totally understand the financial ramification of what I did, but I didn't hurt anybody. It didn't lead to any major distress.
Mm.
And the way that it was handled, with having that other person in the office not giving me any sort of respect or a heads up and speaking to me in a very belittling tone. I went back into his office and I said, listen, I said, and they both were there. And I said, it is not my responsibility to determine how you want to reprimand me. But that is not a leader that I want to be a part of. And
Yeah.
so you tell me how you want to reprimand me. And I floored him. He didn't know what to say. There was a little bit of other exchange, but essentially I left that conversation breathing heavily because it took all my confidence back in the day
Yeah.
to who knew that I would become a business owner one day and a leader of two businesses and coaching on image. But I knew from that moment that is not what a leader does. A leader does not belittle. A leader does not gang you up on other people. They cheer you on and they
Yeah.
help to find resolutions together. So, Darren, that's my first inkling of caring about how we treat each other. That was such
Yeah.
a critical, pivotal moment. Then, years later, I became a co-owner of my IT company. My IT company is now 32 years old. I've been on the scene there for over 25 years. And about 15 or so years ago, my company was fired. And my IT company, we thought, oh, it was probably a technical issue. And we had the gift of, and I call it a gift, of an exit interview. They're
Yeah.
not easy. And when, in sales, one of the worst things to do is have an offboarding call.
Mm.
I totally get it. But this one made monumental change in my company. And so we were called in to a client of 10 years, 10
Wow.
years. And they paid us a monthly reoccurring revenue, totaling well over 10,000 a year. And so it was a lot of lost revenue that was on the line. He said, every time I call, your team acts as if they have no idea who I am. And I
Wow.
was like, our phone skills? Our phone skills are why it was such a
That's
shocking moment, right? I mean, we didn't think about that. But we came back to, then we started, kind of taking inventory of all the things that happened to be going on. And there were other issues. And we had one client said, don't send that engineer back
yeah.
because he makes me feel stupid. Another, it were just a cast of errors that we were
Yes.
making. Had nothing to do with the technology. We were great. We were tech savvy. We still are great and tech savvy. But they didn't like because we didn't treat them like a VIP. So we were not acting like great managers. I felt awful, absolutely awful. So I had to make that change. And that's when Shore's success came to be. I was part-time cleaning closets and working as a stylist on the weekends because I just love the power of clothing and appearances.
Yeah.
And I was always working with professionals on what was in their wardrobe. But I had to expand those services and became what's called an image professional, an image
Yeah.
consultant.
Yeah.
But as you know, nobody wakes up and says, "Oh, I need an image consultant today." But, but they do say, "How am I going to keep my clients happy?"
Yeah.
How so how many of of your listeners think or how many of you are thinking, are my clients happy today?
Yeah.
Are they going to renew their contract? Can I raise their prices?
Yeah.
And those answers come when you have a great relationship. So those are my
Man,
stories of
that is amazing.
journey.
Isn't that interesting how it's almost like serendipitous that out of one out of one I guess experience of adversity, opportunity comes out and all of a sudden, multiply that by a number of years moving forward and you're doing both and both of them are flourishing, which is fantastic. Going back to that conversation and as you were describing that, you almost said, I think, so it's communication skills or a telephone skills, and you're thinking is it that obvious? And I don't want to miss this point because sometimes people can say, especially in front of a customer, telephone
Yeah,
skills, like as if to say, really? That is ridiculous. Who do you think you are? Versus that is gold of feedback because what it tells you is we have
right,
a brand of what we think we are, what we think we represent, but ultimately the brand is how our customers and their potential customers see us. So it's the
right.
impression we're creating. How much of an epiphany was that for you?
Well, that's when the epiphany really occurred. So first of all, the way that we responded in that meeting, I like how you actually brought that up. We definitely did not respond in a smug way. We did not respond in any way but shock and appreciation that we learned this
Yes,
and deep apologies
yes,
and all the hope in the world that we could gain their trust back. But the truth is, it takes years to gain trust, but
yeah,
it takes minutes to lose it.
mm,
And so it was very powerful. There was no way we were getting that trust back. But that was when, so my degree is in marketing. And so I always knew the power of like public relations and a great logo and making sure that we had logo consistency on our invoices, our business cards, or the company colors. And
mm,
but what really came out of that is the second half of marketing, and that's the human element.
yeah,
And that's where I dove in head first. I joined the Association of Image Consultants International. I flew all over the country here in the US for specialized training with image masters on vocal skills. I work with a vocal coach and really how do we present ourselves and how do we speak in a way that made our clients feel, and prospects for sure, I
mm,
mean this is all about sales,
mm,
feel important, because
mm.
perception is reality, and our perception, the perception of our client and how we treated them was definitely not the reality we thought we were delivering. And we were like, oh my God. So it was a pivotal moment on that perception management. And never
It's
again was that going to happen.
well, it's probably a fantastic lesson in hindsight that that was a gift that that client cared enough about, I guess, the relationship and cared enough about you as a provider of those services to actually give you that feedback. Because a lot of organizations wouldn't. They would have just said, you know what, we're leaving, and not give you the legitimate reason as to why they're leaving. And you would have been
100%.
left none the wiser. You're thinking, oh, is it our technology? No, no. It's and the thing is, I don't want to belittle the fact that it's your communication skills or your telephone skills. That
Mhm.
is everything because that is what creates the impression. So if you've got great
Right.
technology, that's great, but it's only as good as your ability to articulate a message to that
So
customer
true.
that then matches that technology with the service you provide.
So true. The first thing that I fixed, the very first thing, and we all have this strategy, is our phone process. So I
Yep.
actually created an actual phone process with scripting, with our process, and we've documented out how do we answer the phone, what questions to ask, how to transfer a call, voice messaging, right down to, of course, when your tone of voice needs to be jovial
Mm.
when you're answering a call,
Yeah.
but when you need to dial it back
Yes.
when there's an issue that you need
Yeah.
to resolve.
Yeah.
And critical. We started there, and then the rest of the book came to be, but that was really my first fix was the phones.
So the question I wanted to ask you around that is you mentioned you've been involved in the business for 25 years. It's been running since, is it 1988? It's 30 plus years?
92. I met Eric in
92?
98, but the business started in 92.
Right. So 20, 33 years. Um,
Oh, good this year. Right. Thank you for doing the math. I'm a marketer, not a mathematician.
That's right. How looking back on that time, because two things came from it. One, you created Sure Success
Mhm.
and working in the importance of imaging, branding, consistency around that, and being really dialed in on the message you want to send to your marketplace. How much of that had an impact on the IT business and everybody in it, in terms of not just the success of the business, but I guess the viability of and the market awareness of what you do? Because that, for me, would be a differentiator a lot against a lot of other businesses who probably don't have the emotional intelligence to figure out, you know what, I have to tailor my communication to my customer, not just talk to them as if I'm a robot and they don't know what they're talking about.
I love that you asked this question. And I love that you said emotional intelligence because that's truly the building block to success. And so, sure, success absolutely came to be because of all the struggles within my IT company. And I am proud to say that our one of our differentiators truly is because in IT and the company business, we're a sea of sameness. All of us offer some sort of cybersecurity solutions, data backup solutions, monitoring and maintaining a network. But what's going to set you apart is that relationship and the
Mm,
value that you add. And so I use Sure Success strategies daily. And every morning we have a staff meeting and I buy my time with both companies to work on the marketing on I hired a marketing coordinator to help me at the tech business because I couldn't put all the time in, but one of our differentiators is our score, our CSAT scores,
mm,
and our wonderful scores that we receive from clients. So, how do you measure? In a world of sales, we're always looking at KPIs and what do we measure? We measure, and on the image side of things, we measure our churn, right? So we look at how and when there is churn, why was there churn?
mm.
So you can't really control if a client retires, and I'm not worrying about that, but I'm worried about those clients who went to a new provider.
Yes.
So look at that number. We were looking at survey scores and what are our clients saying about us? How are they feeling?
Mm,
And so those were some critical components. We even did 3 years of we have a program called Best Places to Work, and that's surveying our own team and what were they thinking. And so I'm proud to share that we've earned that honor three different years. And so we're looking at a lot of those kinds of aspects, cultural happiness. So that's how we measure, and that's what sets us apart because we want our clients to know us for comfort,
mm.
for VIP status, for making them feel that they're listened to, understood and heard. And we're not speaking at the geek speak level,
Yeah.
but we're able to tailor our message so that they understand it.
Yeah.
And that's something we literally talk about every day in some form, every day.
It's brilliant. Brilliant. And when you think about it, there's two parts to that. One is, and I'm interested in how you approach this to the clients you work with in Sure Success. You've got I guess, the branding and the imagery of the organization, and then you've got the branding and the imagery of the internal bits of the organization. So
Right.
the way I look at that is to say, well, the image we create to the marketplace of our company has to be mirrored, if not exemplified or amplified internally, because if not, people are going to have this bit of a disconnect to say, you know what, there's a bit of incongruence between what we're portraying out there in the marketplace and what we're actually experiencing internally. And we hear this a lot with organizations saying, oh, we put the customer at the center of everything we do, and we are so customer focused. And yet sometimes they treat their employees as second or third class citizens, right? Because it's all about the
Right.
customer. Forgetting, of course, that your employees are also a customer and they're also a speaker out there in the marketplace.
100%. Oh boy. I mentioned that in the first chapter of my book, where I talk about the difference between a corporate brand and a personal brand. And the personal brands create that corporate brand.
Mm,
And that's such a critical mindset for everybody to understand is that there is no business if you don't have the humans facilitating the business. And I think Disney is a good example of, it's globally known, right? And the characters are always in character when you're on, when they're working, when they're representing Disney, even when they're not representing Disney. There are very strict rules
Mm.
for those who are Disney characters to never share that they're Snow White or that
Yeah.
they're Cinderella because they don't want to ruin the magic,
Yeah.
right? That's their mission, that's their goal. And I like how you use the word congruency. I have what I call, I use in the book, I teach clients the three C's: consistency, congruency leads to credibility.
Hmm.
When we're consistent with our brand and we're consistently providing great customer service, and our online presence matches our in-person presence. Our team, just like we were saying, just like everybody aligns and it mirrors. So that's consistency. Congruency for me on the image side is that we're telling that one story.
Mm.
Just like you're saying, if you're telling the story that you're providing exceptional service, that's one of your company core values, but you don't answer the phone,
Yeah.
you don't you don't make me you're frustrated or your team looks unkempt. Is that really congruent? Or maybe you're saying you offer one service, but you really don't.
Yeah.
Then you're getting confused, and a confused buyer never buys. And so, but you want that congruency, so you build credibility and trust. And the word I use in this book is all about loyalty.
Mm.
And when we lost that car dealership, we lost loyalty. I was very loyal at the time to the adhesive company. I
Yeah.
thought I was there almost 5 years. I thought for sure I was getting my degree. I was going to grow with the company. And they knew I was getting my degree, but I had to pay for my schooling myself. So I was on the 6 year plan for it, which is fine. But they lost my loyalty when they didn't trust my integrity and
Yeah.
they didn't trust who I was as an employee.
Yeah.
And that was critical. So thinking back, and so I want all your listeners to think, well, what's my corporate brand? How do I want it perceived? And then what are the humans inside my company, my employees and team members? How are they behaving? What are
Yeah.
they saying? Are you providing them some consistent guidelines? Like we provide uniforms when I'm working with a client and they say, well, we're a casual environment. And I say, that's fine, but can you consider, you should have logoed shirts. You should have baseball hats that are logoed. Your
Yeah.
cars, if you have company cars, wrap them so that you're creating that brand upon arrival.
Mm.
When you go into a client site or there's a lot of different factors to think about, but it's the humans that we remember.
100%. As you were talking, I'm just remembering a lot of the programs I run with organizations, particularly with sales teams, they do wear logoed jackets or logoed polo shirts, and we talk about, I guess, the impressions we're always creating. And
Right.
it's easy for these guys to think, yep, when I'm on the clock, that is when I'm in business mode, I'm
Mhm.
very conscious of the image that I want to create because I'm in work mode. But I said, consider this when you're driving down the highway, when you're in a petrol station, or when you go into a convenience store, or something happens and you have a choice to make in terms of how you react to that situation, just be conscious of the fact that your brand is there. And whether you like it
100%.
or not, people will see your behavior or their interpretation of your behavior and they'll allocate you with that brand. Now, whether they know the brand or not doesn't matter. There's an
Right.
impression you've now created. So take that
Oh my
very, very
gosh.
seriously.
I'm glad you do, and I hope everybody else does. You never know when a new client is going to pop up. I mean, I get it if you're at a sports game but think about it. All of the athletes, when you're watching any kind of sports game, they're in uniform. There's a
Yes.
required uniform, whether they're on the field or off the field, whether they're in a press conference, whether they're notice how that consistently carries through
Mm,
the entire process.
yes.
And the same thing happens for you and I when in sales. And it's important for both of our clients to understand that you're always representing your brand. You're
Mm,
always, even when you're in a corporate environment,
yeah.
because even IBM or Nike or, what is Nike? Nike's a great example of brand congruency
Yes.
because they're the ones that are always representing, and all of their advertising is all athletics, athletes. They sponsor the Olympics, they sponsor, all sports events. That's a great example
Mm,
of what congruency means and consistency for a brand. And how can you think, and we even know their tagline, just do it, right?
yeah.
They're memorable. But the people
Yeah.
they have representing the brand are what really create that dream because we want to emulate many of not everybody, but we want to emulate star status there, that celebrity athlete, that just being able to just do it and feel that energy
Mm,
of the Nike athlete.
yeah.
And that's a feeling, it's an emotion. And sales isn't always the most rational, and we make decisions on feelings. So don't hurt anybody's feelings. So think of them as a VIP. So,
Absolutely. So just on that, because I'm thinking there'll be people listening to this who are in a sales team or they're a sales leader that is under pressure, right? It might be that the team is not traveling so well, the company might be under pressure. There might be all these external circumstances that could be, justifying as to why we're not performing and hitting our numbers. You talked about the consistency that leads to being really congruent, being really intentional, then leads to the credibility. What do you say to sales teams or to businesses that may be having some tough times, that they're under pressure to hit the short-term goals? It could be not the same situation as you found yourself in, but you might have a senior manager who's just saying, you know what, I don't care what you've got to do, just get this number in, which can have an impact on behavior of the sales
right.
team, particularly of the leader, because there's a pressure that's coming directly on the individual. What's your guidance, or how do you work with clients who are under that sort of pressure to really focus in on the power of consistency and the congruence that will ultimately lead to credibility? And how much of it is a thing called patience?
Oh boy. A lot of it's patience. A lot of it's patience, and I think it's three things: patience, setting expectations, and making sure you understand what the job at hand is. A lot of stress comes in. So there's and also empathy. I think that we'll add a fourth one in there, and that's empathy because first of all, the manager of your sales team is receiving pressure from their manager. So understand that sometimes frustration and anger is displaced
Mm,
onto a team that isn't necessarily underperforming, but the manager is trying to find a way to motivate the team to grow, to make more phone calls, more networking events, more leads.
yeah.
So we have to the best way to motivate somebody is to meet them in an empathetic way, and to definitely, I think a lot of ambiguity comes in, and frustration comes in when someone doesn't understand the mission of the team.
Yeah.
And so now we're at crunch time. And so that's not the best time to share the mission of the team. My suggestion is A, if you are under crunch time, like we had a number to hit the end of last year. And so how did we do that? And so we said, okay, we got a meeting together and we shared what we had left, how much we accomplished, what was left in the year,
Yeah.
and let's talk about some of the leads that ghosted us. Can we make one more call to them? Can we do one last effort? Maybe we sent a quote and it never closed. Let's
Mm,
just call them one more time and just see, is everything great? Is there anything I can do to help you? And some will call back and some won't.
yeah.
But the best thing, and so that's something you can do crunch time, but setting expectations, sharing the why, because a lot of frustration comes in and a lack of patience, as you say, comes in when we just don't understand what our mission is and what our
Mm,
role in that success is. So I highly suggest on a sales team to share the numbers, share the mission, be I totally understand you can't be fully transparent with every single number, but
yeah.
what numbers will make that team understand why it's important to make that one call? and cheer them on, cheer people on, offer support. Sometimes a little friendly competition, could help as well, but it's never going to be a culture builder by screaming. It's not, what was the movie? Office, oh my goodness. There was a movie back in the Coffees for Closers. Do you remember what was that movie?
Coffees for clothes.
There was a movie back in the day, and it was a high pressure sales movie.
Yeah.
And there's a famous tagline that says coffee is for closers. And what they meant was you don't get a break. You need to close more leads, more, and everyone was fighting for the best leads. And it was just, it was such an old school style of selling that just doesn't fit
No,
in our workplace today. It just
no,
isn't where we are today. And
no.
so we need to be a little more empathetic, a little bit more communicative and transparent so people feel like they're part of the mission instead of feeling like it's my fault that we're not hitting the numbers. And oh my God, like they're blaming me for everything. We don't want that for
They're
management.
blaming you for getting the labels wrong.
They blame me for getting those labels wrong, for not, putting it in the file. Remember the paper file correctly? I put the wrong label in the file and selecting the wrong one. And it's just that's not the mindset of today. That was the 90s. And that's years ago. And we can't, that's not how we're gonna get ahead. We're gonna get ahead when we have a culture of mutual respect. And I'm not saying to not lead your team and
Mm,
not lead your team by the numbers and make sure you're tracking because believe me, I own a business. I profitability is number one on my list. And does this activity support the profitability of my company and help it to grow? We think about those things. And
yeah.
and I talk about, when I sit with clients, the first thing we do is we put goals together.
Mm,
And then when we start talking about various activities within the brand method and we start building it out, I go right back to the goals.
yeah.
Does this align? Does this activity align with our company goals?
Yeah.
Is it important right now? So,
Because
so
you need
yeah.
to know where well, as an individual, but also as an enterprise and as a team, you need to know what you stand for, what's important to you, which is, what are the standards and what are the values. And I always have a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a chuckle, but I'm always curious when companies that I go into, they talk about their values and they have them on their website. But then when you ask the people on the floor, and it's not a question that I try to ask to try and catch them out, but often when I ask, so guys, what are the top five values of XYZ organization? And very few of them can actually articulate more than two. And
Right.
so the conversation then is, so what does that actually mean? It means that potentially somebody within the business has put a steering committee together to come up with what they think are the words that best describes the organization, but they haven't got the people brought into that vision or that value set. So how do we then create that at a team level? We've got to understand why we're doing this. You've got to understand what motivates
Mm,
people and how you tap into that motivation and link it to the goals of the organization because you're not going to be able to motivate people with a stick to say you need to hit this because the company needs to hit its forecast. It's a case of, well, what's in it for me, right?
yeah.
And if you can create that environment, people are more likely to increase their level of discretionary effort. And if you can filter into that the conversation about how do we help these people build their own brand, which then best represents the organization, it's going to be a great ecosystem that everybody can
Right.
operate in.
I love that. And in my book, so there's two different sets of values that are important to talk about in a company. There's the corporate core values for sure, but each human in your company has their own personal core
Mm,
values. So as a starting activity for all of my clients, one of my questions right from the get-go is how do you want to be perceived by others? What's
mm,
important to you? And those core values are critical because we now use those during the quarterly review meetings that we have with each employee. We're able to check in and does this align with who you are still? How
yeah.
do you feel about, being knowledgeable? Are you getting certifications? Are you learning? Are you cross training? Are
Mm,
you, or you can say, I think that you've been doing an amazing job. Let's talk about the positive side. You've been doing an amazing job coaching others on how to I don't know, install Windows 11 or
Yeah.
how to what. So it's really great that you have a company has to a leader starts with the leadership. So culture starts at the top with leadership. And the way that leadership responds, dresses, acts, even eats is
Mm.
observed.
Yeah.
Everything leadership does, posts on social media, whatever it is, leadership is observed.
100%.
And that sets the tone working their way down. So, what the leader values, even if there are company core values established, are often, if the company core values don't align with the leadership's behavior, then it's negated.
That's it.
But at the end of the day, we have two sets of values to really consider as a leader, and that's your corporate core values, but honoring those of your personal core
Mm.
values. And we are an amazing global ecosystem of amazing humans. And there's
Mm.
so much potential to communicate and share and collaborate and grow and inspire if we just took the time to learn it, to learn about each other. A little bit of small talk, just like you and I did when we before we jumped on the call today.
Yeah,
We
we were
got to
talking all
know each
things. We were
other.
talking about rosés, and I introduced you to sparkling Shiraz.
I can't wait. I wrote it down. And yes, and so I mean, but those little details make a difference to developing rapport. And that rapport is what creates brand loyalty.
Mm.
That's what closes the sale. It's a
Mm.
belief because they haven't really test drove you. I mean, most sales, you're not test, you don't test drive it
Mm.
first. I mean, a car you test drive, yes, but most sales, you're buying a product based on what others are saying, testimonials, reviews, online comments. I really liked that salesperson.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a chance on you.
Yeah. And sometimes when you say I really like that salesperson and the word salesperson sound, hang on, there's a bit disconnect here.
You're right. You're right. So maybe it's probably not the best. I like to
But
say trusted advisor
yeah,
or
but that does say a lot about what brand that particular individual salesperson um, has and what impression they create and how they make their potential customers feel
it's
when
true.
they're interacting with them. Because I often ask this question of salespeople. I said, who in the room likes to be sold to? And it's very rare that somebody puts their hand up and says, "Yeah, I love to be sold to. I like to analyze the process that they go through and see all the different attempts to closing." Most people say, "No, I don't." But I then ask the question, "Well, who likes to buy?" And everybody puts their hand up. And I say, well,
That's
when you
right.
think about it, what is it that entices you or leads you to make a buying decision? Often, it's not going to be just the quality of the product, and it's not just going to be the price of the product or the service. It's going to have a lot to do with how the person who is representing that product or service is making you feel in that interaction.
It's beautiful.
Can you
Yep.
trust them? Right? Do you like them? Is there a memorability there?
I think that's the key. That's the key component. That last word, memorability. And that's a key component to a personal brand. And a
Mm,
personal brand has two facets to it, Darren. And the first half is your executive presence. It's the
hmm.
ability for that salesperson to walk into the room and do what I say, command attention versus
Yeah.
demand it. So turn on your video camera
Wait, listen to
and,
me.
and smile. Walk into a networking event and smile
Yeah.
and reach out your hand for a nice, strong handshake and eye contact and body language. But the other half of a personal brand is that memorability. What are people saying about you when you're not there?
Mm,
And how crucial is that? Because that's what creates that brand and that corporate brand knowledge and consistency. If I showed you a bunch of logos, a Starbucks logo, a Nike logo, an IBM logo, an Apple logo, you'd immediately rattle off what each brand stands for.
yes.
And you'd know they're global brands, they're very well known, they're known for customer service. They're Why shouldn't we take that stance
Mm,
for our own businesses? I want every single person listening to this podcast to take that stance, to
yeah.
take those soft skills, that etiquette, that communication skill, those communication skills that seriously.
Mm,
because that's what creates that longevity and that loyalty that we really need. So to
absolutely.
be
It's sustain it,
sustainable.
it is it's sustainability. And as you're talking about it, the memorability part, I remember I used to follow Bob Proctor for years and years and years, and he always used to talk about creating the impression of increase. And as you were talking about that, I'm thinking, yeah, that's what it is. The impression of increase is it's memorability. It's
Mm,
when you leave somebody's presence, you leave them with an impression that you are now memorable. Now, it's not about you, big noting yourself. It's something you've left with them that makes them feel better for having had the interaction with you. And that's
right. Oh, isn't
sometimes
that
hard to
beautiful?
quantify, but it's this because people make decisions often based on emotion. We know this from JP Morgan that 70% of the decisions that most people make, and there's always exceptions to that, are based on emotional or political and cultural reasons. And so,
Hmm.
if we're trying to influence people, we have to understand that we have a lot of power to influence, but doing it ethically so that we are memorable, so we can tap into the emotions of the potential customer or the returning customer in some cases as
Right.
well.
Yeah, we shouldn't discount account management here
No,
and really understand the value of that memorability. We can't be the best kept secret. And
no,
so having that memorability and consistently meeting with your clients, checking in, not just to sell them something, but really using those business review meetings as an opportunity to just small talk, do some small talk.
yeah,
How are we doing as a company? What feedback can I bring to my team? How are you guys doing? Do you have any plans for growth on the horizon?
mm,
And so not every and I think that we sometimes some of my clients have misunderstood the power of a business review meeting as just being a sales opportunity. Now it's a relationship building opportunity and they do result an amazing amount of sales. But at the end of the day, we need to maintain a relationship. We can't just sell and then forget. A client will remember that. And there's a study by a gentleman named Daniel Kahneman. And
so a little bit of delay there, and this is authenticity.
authenticity at its best, I am now on my hotspot. So
Oh,
this is why you have multiple solutions in case the internet goes down or a glitch happens.
wow,
I'm on my phone hotspot right now. So
it's amazing.
yeah. So let's continue.
Where were we?
I was talking about one of my favorite studies, and it's called the
Yes,
peak end rule.
the what
The
rule?
peak, the peak PEAK end END rule, and it's by a gentleman named Daniel Kahneman. And I'm totally paraphrasing the study, but essentially it says people remember the peaks of an experience.
Yes.
Not all the little things that you do in between, but they remember the peak. And the peak could be an amazing experience with you. You answered the phone, you serviced their needs. So somebody needs a new widget, a new shoe, a new computer hard drive, whatever it is, you were able to service them, you listened to their needs, you recommended a solution, soup to nuts. They remember that.
Yeah.
For my case of why we got fired from that car dealership
Yeah.
is they remembered the other parts of it, the not so great service we delivered. We weren't considering client experience and we were answering the phone
Mm,
sounding aloof. If you listen back to one of the calls that my dispatcher at the time did, she was saying things like, "What was your name again?" And just no interest, just no emotion to it, no concern, and barely listening. Like, what
mm,
was your name again? And just writing it down. So
yeah.
it's so important that we consider those peaks and valleys in the relationship and what are people going to remember? Because that's the lasting impression is how you keep that brand stability going.
Absolutely. And whether it's an account management conversation, whether it's a sales call, a discovery call, yes, we'd love to actually be able to convert as many clients as we possibly can, but know that there's only going to be a certain percentage of clients who are going to be in their buying cycle at that particular
Right.
time. And so the
Right.
memorability has to be really, really clear. What is my
What is
intention
that?
here? My intention, I'd love to be able to close a sale, but more than that, my intention is to create an impression that plants seeds for a future sale. It's
Amen.
not just about this, it's about the next interaction, the next interaction. How do I make them feel to the point where I'll always be top of mind?
Love it. Absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself. We're kindred spirits here. Totally kindred spirits.
So,
Oh,
Lisa, you've mentioned a few times the book, and the book is called Your Brand Unleashed.
mhm.
And it looks like brand is an acronym. Is that fair?
It sure is. It sure is. Yes, when you look at the book jacket, you'll see the dots in between each. And each letter in brand is its own chapter of the book, but it represents a strategy. So the book itself, I like to call it it's like a manual for soft skills success and
Yeah,
building that relationship. It's like a blueprint, and it can be used any time of the year, and it's an amazing tool for onboarding new employees to set the standard of
yeah,
what you're looking for. But B stands for our behavior and how we act and react. That emotional intelligence is critical.
yeah,
R is all about respect and respecting ourselves personally and taking care of ourselves, respecting our personal brand, our corporate brand, and then the brand of our clients.
yeah.
We needed to learn some serious respect. A is all about appearance. That's my foundation. And to me, appearance is probably the first step in first impressions. And people make value judgments based on how you look, your posture, your background. If you're virtual, they think
Yeah.
about what's behind you. They analyze the pictures on the wall. What is that picture on the wall? What's that pillow over there? They analyze all of that.
Yes.
N is all about networking. So this is the only piece of the brand method that's not tied to the physical human. But
Yes.
N is all about getting out and not being the best kept secret. So
Hmm.
it's networking, just like lead generation at chamber events, at different associations. Could be networking with your clients and account management. And
Yep.
then there's a big opportunity of your internal team to network with clients to support the sales process. So if your salesperson, your account manager is having trouble getting across a message
Mm.
to your buyer, oftentimes the support staff in your company can, because they're not viewed as salesy, can be a great solution, could be a
Yeah.
great support system to the sales process. And they can
100%.
make great recommenders. And then D is dynamic dialogue. Our voice cannot be static. Our voice has to be a range of volume, of melody, of urgency. There has to be, and the way we say it is critical. And I do throw in a little bit of email in there as
Okay.
our one-dimensional voice. And
Yes.
so, and the power of misunderstandings of emails, and so with suggestions on how to fix that. So,
Don't send
so
emails.
oh goodness gracious, how many times have they misunderstood? And like, can you just explain? I need that report tomorrow. Okay, what report? What do you want me done to do with it? What time tomorrow?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
just a little bit of detail would be great. Even if it's a bullet point list, a little bit of detail would be amazing.
And I've got to say the last part, the I guess the dynamic and the communication is often one of the last things people actually consciously think about. They just speak.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure whether you've used Morabian study in that chapter or not,
Oh
but
yeah, he's in
yeah,
there.
yeah. So
He's
when
in.
people understand that the words you speak are very important, but they're either amplified or minimized by your body language or your tonality, it takes on a
Right.
whole new meaning. So be very, very conscious of A, the words you choose to use, but more specifically, how you
Yeah.
choose to communicate them because it'll
That's
change the meaning.
right. That vocal and verbal. There's got to be a vocal piece to your consideration and then a verbal piece.
Yeah.
The words we say, but the way we deliver it, oh, is so it's so easily misconstrued, but and it's really hard to to mask that body language. So Albert Moravian's study was the 735-55 study, and only 7% of the words, and it was really a vocal study. It wasn't really about a nonverbal study, but it was really
No.
about our tone of voice and the power of what we say or what we're hearing.
Mm.
Because the respondents were in a dark room, and it was really the power of what we were hearing. And
Yeah.
then they built in the nonverbal, but it was like that voice and the way you say it is so easily it needs to be that's where emotional intelligence comes in, where we feel the emotion and we're justified in our emotions. We should feel frustrated when a
Yeah.
client doesn't understand. You're justified in feeling
Mm.
angry that they don't understand why a price increase is necessary or renewal of a contract. And you're so justified, everybody. I want you to know that, and I'm
Yeah.
sending you a virtual hug. But but how we respond is different, and that's where the emotional intelligent piece comes in. And no matter how we're feeling internally, we can't. We have to work, and this is so hard. Oh my God, Darren, it's like
Uh,
you have to give yourself grace and space to calm yourself down, man. You just have to,
Absolutely. And a
yeah,
lot of people don't realize that often we project our emotions and our feelings and sometimes the way we speak onto other people. So the if somebody's calling you, just think about this. They might be frustrated, right? It might be the
yeah.
only reason they're calling your organization is because they're at their wits' end and you're their last resort. If you answer the phone and provide an impression that you're annoying me, you're interrupting my game of Sudoku, then that's not a good thing, right? So be very intentional with the impression you want to create.
Oh,
So, Lisa, this
100%.
has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm going to encourage people to get a copy of the book, and you'll talk about a lead magnet in a second, which you can offer people, which is fantastic. If you're gonna if you're talking to people right now, people are listening to this, and you're in a room with them, and they're asking you, so Lisa, 2025, what is one thing? There's a lot of stuff you can talk about. There's a lot of stuff. You just don't go through the brand acronym. But if there was one thing that I could start with that could give me a bit of a heads up or a bit of a step into the right direction of creating a better brand, creating a better impression, whether it be internally with the business, whether it be personally or whether it be at the business, what would that one thing be potentially?
I think it's to start with. Well, I have a lead magnet that starts with this, and that's our being aware. I think I want everyone to walk away from this podcast with an understanding of an awareness that we all have our own self-limiting beliefs. And before I even get into the brand method in my book, I have a chapter on mindset
Yeah.
and understanding that we're all human for sure, but start understanding that the ideas and what we're telling ourselves is not is it supporting the company or and your personal career and your growth, or is it holding you and the company back because of some of the beliefs, or in the book I call it head trash. So starting there, and then understanding the next piece is the power of our voice.
Mm,
And I want people to be, for 2025, communicate with empathy, ask questions, gain knowledge, understand. And if you don't understand, ask.
mm,
And if you're being asked for an explanation, please answer in an empathetic way
yeah.
so that we have a mutually respectful, there's the R, conversation. So I
Yeah.
think for 2025, we need to really think about our what we're telling ourselves and start shifting our head trash, but then communicating and with really focusing on D and how we're making people feel and develop rapport and
Mm,
relationships so that you have that loyalty. I
yeah.
think we need that in our society today, and I think it's such a critical component to global growth is that communication skill.
Love it. And I'll add one thing to that, and that is when
Please.
you do that, it has to be intentional and it has to be authentic.
I love that. Thank you for adding that in. You bet. 100 intentional is that's half the battle right there is
Mm,
thinking about what we're going to say versus just spouting out. If you need the time to form an answer,
mm,
then give yourself the time. Set an
mm.
expectation. Let me think about that. I'm feeling a lot of anxiety here about this situation. Let me cool myself down and let's come back to this conversation in an hour, in 2 hours.
Yep.
Honoring yourself, giving that's our respect is taking that time if you're feeling you need it,
Mm.
a little bit of downtime so that when you do respond with intentionality, it's with empathy and respect
Love it.
and true to who you are. Remember your
Totally.
personal core values.
Totally. Because a great way to end that is to say whether you're representing a company, a small brand, a medium brand, or a big brand, people are doing business with you because of how you make
Right.
them feel, how you like, whether you like them, whether they like you, and whether you're memorable, right? So just
Amen.
know that you've got a huge impact you can make on the customers you deal with. So, hey, Lisa, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Really appreciate you coming on. For people who are wanting to connect with you, learn more about the great work you do at Shore Success, but also get a copy of the book, where can they do that?
So the book is available on all the online places. So pick your favorite online resource and grab it there. I would love it and start using it as your new manual for corporate success, corporate emotional success. I actually have a gift for all of you, and that's a snippet. It's the very first, one of the first success exercises in the book, and it's turning your head trash into success minded and growth minded statements. And you can find that at Shore Success, SHORR, success.com/, mindset success exercise. And I'm
Cool.
pretty sure I have the link for you, Darren. So we'll put that.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll put
make
that in
sure
the
I
show
get that
notes.
link to you and we can
Awesome.
share that. So please do this success exercise with yourself and then share it and do it with your team and
Mm,
see what other head trash and self-limiting beliefs they have. Talk about it, communicate it, and move forward from it.
nice.
Let's start learning together and let's start our journeys together into communication success.
Brilliant. Love it. Thank you for that. And I'll also add your LinkedIn profile as well so people can connect with you there as well.
Love it. Please do.
Um, Lisa, despite our little technological hiccup halfway through, greatly appreciate coming on. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and thanks
Yes,
for being a great
Thursday
guest.
night.
It
Yes,
is Thursday
6:19
night,
p.m.
Friday morning here,
It's
and
awesome.
thanks once again for being a guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast.
It's so my pleasure, my pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity to share. I very
Awesome,
much appreciate the platform.
brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.